I just have a couple of quick intro things. All of you know who John Wasserman is. If you've been on the call before, he ran an amazing call in March. It was so awesome. We got so much great feedback about it. Give me everyone's line here. Right. So yeah, we got great feedback about everything. We want to do this again so that way you guys can get questions answered and really to start practicing PDI because it's such a valuable part of your business. So John is a DVM of the Powerhouse Division, which is the Pennsylvania division in the Northeast region. He's over $83 million in sales. He's developed Silver Cup reps in every single category. He was actually my original manager, so he's just an awesome guy, really knows his stuff, and he's excited to work with you all on PDI and PC scenarios. If you guys don't know, we have one more branch impact call in April, so definitely mark this in your calendar. It's at a time that we normally don't do it, but that's to accommodate our guest speaker. We have Jeff Gamboa, who is the DVM of the Florida Gulf and the Florida Caribbean divisions down in the Eastern region. He actually has the highest fast start PPR in the entire nation. So he's going to be coming on April 23rd at 6 p.m. for a branch impact call all about impacting your fast start PPR. He was the original manager of Andrew Evans. You all know who Andrew Evans is. And Rhiannon Smith, who I think was the number 10 branch manager last summer. She had over $200,000 in sales. So he knows how to work with branches. He knows how to influence fast start PPR. So again, that is Monday, April 23rd at 6 p.m. I'll be posting all the details immediately after this call. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to John, and we'll get this whole thing started. So John, I think your line is muted. There you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, good. So thanks for having me on again. I don't know if you guys really realize how lucky you are to have Shelby helping you out this summer. I didn't have that when I was a branch. She didn't have that when she was a branch. And this extra time and attention that she's really putting together to help you get liftoff is I don't know, it just fires me up. So I'm really honored to be a part of it, and I hope you get a lot out of today. I'm going to talk about things that you probably would cover in PCs or PDI, but it was pretty cool that several of you chimed in on Facebook with some things you wanted me to cover. So I'm going to start with those, and then I have something I want to cover with you as well. And then if you have other questions, I'm going to do this a little bit different than last time. Instead of having you handle the scenario, since you came up with the scenarios, I'm going to just kind of cover how I would take care of some of these, because some of them are, I think some of them can be a bit sensitive. And I noticed there were a lot of questions about base pay. So wondering, well, how do I cover it when the rep, doesn't, they're not happy with the base pay, or they don't understand the base pay, or they're trying to get paid for appointments they didn't really do. So I'm going to cover all those things. But let me just say this about the base pay program. When I was a rep, we had to walk uphill to our demos both ways. I always hated when my parents would say stuff like that. But anyway, I'm going to have to, just to give you a little history on this. We had a quota for how many demos we needed to do. And I think when I was a rep, I had to do 45 demos in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, something like that, in order to get any base pay. So in other words, if you did 30 demos and your base pay was more than your commissions, you still didn't get any base pay because you didn't hit the quota of 45. You had to hit the quota within the time frame. And then a few years back, we decided to test out paying everybody base pay without a quota, no matter what. And I was actually one of the district managers that tested that program. And I was so bad at it that the CEO, Aldi Leonardo, called me personally to tell me to get off the test. So because my payouts were so high and I was just terrible at managing it. But what it did was I actually begged him to stay on the test group, by the way. And I went from being the worst to being the poster child for how to manage base pay. And what happened was it just pointed out to me that I wasn't doing the best job at really teaching my reps how to sell and managing this program, whether it was the old program or the new program. So I had to really concentrate on getting better at helping my reps be more productive so that they were making more than the base pay. And I was able to turn things around. I also learned what things I needed to do in order to make sure people weren't abusing the base pay program as well. But it's a great program. I mean, probably all of us could say there's some part of us that wouldn't have started selling Cutco if there wasn't that security of a base pay program. And it's okay to pay people. So I don't want you to think that it's not okay to pay people on base pay. That's what it's there for. It's there to help somebody that's never been in sales before be comfortable with the idea of getting into sales and then eventually kind of weaning them off the base pay and making sure that they have commission pay that they're excited about. Okay, so it kind of helps them bridge that gap until they get comfortable with our program. You're very lucky to have a product like this too. Like normal sales, as some of you probably know, is if you sell 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 100, you're probably doing okay. And here we expect 8 out of 10 to buy, right? And our new reps expect 5 or 6 out of 10 to buy, and we get them to the point where they start expecting everybody to buy, and that's not normal sales. We're very lucky to have a product that's as awesome as it is that sells so easily. So I'm going to dive into your questions first, and Colin Bucksock, I don't know if I said your last name correctly. Am I close? No, not even close.
Busock.
Busock. Okay, Busock. He is silent, you're telling me. Okay, got it. All right, Colin, this was a great question. So when people call in, so a lot of managers do this, hey, call me in the middle of your demo and I'll help you with a deal. And to me, that's kind of new. I never actually did PDI that way as a rep, but so here's how I did it. I knew how CPO worked and how to do deals, and I was an experienced rep. And every once in a while, I would say to my customer, hey, let me call my manager and see if I can work out a better deal for you. And I would call the office, and the manager would, pick up the PDI line. And I would say, hey, I'm with a customer and we're trying to work out a good deal. And he would say, John, you know how this works. And I'm like, oh, really? I can do that? And I would just be pretending like he wasn't even understanding what I was saying. And I'm like, okay, oh, that's awesome. Okay, I'll let her know. And I would just hang up the phone and I would say, hey, here's the deal I could do. Okay. So is that a little shady? Yeah, maybe. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody, So I actually was a terrible sales rep, by the way, much better at running an office than I was at selling Cutco. So I was pulling out all the stops. But I noticed with a lot of managers, they set it up where, hey, when you get to the close, call me and we'll try to work out a better deal. And I think that the main thing is that you're trying to make the customer feel good about the deal they're getting. We're not trying to manipulate them. We're not trying to trick them. We are trying to help the rep close on a bigger sale than they otherwise would have when they do that. Personally, to this day, I don't have reps call in the middle of the demo. I kind of would prefer to just teach them how to be great reps. But I know that a lot of managers feel that, hey, if we can get them to call in, we can help them with a bigger, better deal. So as long as your intentions are to make the customer feel like they're getting a great deal, help them actually get a great deal, and you're not trying to trick or manipulate them, you're really trying to add value to this customer and at the same time save a larger order for the rep, and the customer feels good and the rep feels good, then I think you're going to figure out the best deal to give them. And I think a lot of times reps just struggle with the CPO and the points when they're new. So for me, it's finding out what the customer likes the most. Some customers they have Teflon pots and pans, so they can't use our metal kitchen tools. So offering the kitchen tools for free, that might not be as good of an idea as maybe offering garden tools for free instead, which, if they like to garden. So kind of finding that stuff out on the phone with the customer and working out good free stuff, or the table knives for free to get them to stay with a larger set so they're getting a discount instead of the other free items. I would say that's the main thing that you're trying to do, okay? Corbin Dix asked, hey, my parents, so this was the question, my parents don't like the job. Not that Corbin's parents don't like the job. I think Corbin's parents love the job. Actually, I have no idea. I've never met them. But my parents don't like the job. They looked it up online. They want me to do something else. If you've ever I love that they looked it up online, okay? All right, so first let me address online. Whether it's a rep or a parent or anybody that looks up Vector online, there are two directions that they can move in. They're going to find what they're looking for. Okay, so if they are looking for negative things about any company, like if you look up McDonald's online, you could find plenty of negative things. I bet you could find a ton of negative things about Facebook right now, right? So it doesn't matter what the company is. If you want to find negativity, you're going to find negativity. And my experience has been that parents find what they want to find online. And where I really started to understand that was when I had somebody that I thought was a great rep. She was doing a good job. We were talking about being a branch the next summer. Her name was Leanne Peretti, and her parents looked us up online, and they printed out, her dad printed out all this negative stuff about Vector and handed it to her, right? So she said, well, let me go do my own research. So she went online and found all this positive stuff about Vector, printed it out, and handed it back to her dad. And that's when I realized, and she told me that story, and I'm like, oh, that's great. That's when I realized you're going to find online what you want to find online. Okay, so try to keep that in mind. So if the parents are looking for negativity, they're going to find it. So with the rep, what I'd like to say is, well, when you're old enough to make your own decisions, give me a call. But we can't say that. So do not say that. Okay, that is what not to say. But what you can say is, hey, I understand where your parents are coming from. You know, this is so much different than trying to explain. Like if you were a dishwasher at a restaurant, they would say, oh, that's a nice restaurant. You wash the dishes. They get that immediately. If you were a lifeguard, they would get that immediately. If you were a server or worked in retail at the mall, they would get that immediately. When you're in sales, there's so many different things that can mean. It really takes some explanation. So what I would advise you to do is, hey, go print out all the positive things that are online about Vector and show your parents all the good things that we do for charity. Show them all the good positive comments from people who work here. Show them all the positive stories that, they're positive videos. There's so many great things that you can find. We kind of get, this is my pitch right here. We kind of get a bad rap sometimes because we work with a lot of teenagers. And you probably have friends that blame the teacher for their bad grades, or anybody who went to the gym, joined a gym, went a couple times and quit. That doesn't make the gym an evil place, right? Although they might say it is evil, but that's not what, that's not reality. Somebody who went to college, and dropped out during the semester, or it just, that doesn't make the college a bad place. So we do have people that try Cutco sales, don't do well. They never say, I didn't do well. They say that doesn't work, right? That's just human nature for people to say that, really, of any age. And I think that gets caught up. But because of the power of online and having a voice online, and they want to be heard and they want attention, negativity gets a lot of attention. The negativity gets a lot of attention. It gets a lot more attention than positivity does, all right? So people will put that stuff online. But, hey, you know me. You met so-and-so on the team. I mean, there's so many examples on our team and throughout our division and throughout our company of things that are making this work. And I believe in you. Let me sit down with you and let's put a schedule together that you could really see yourself doing and getting excited about, that can help you with your income goals this summer. What do you say we give that a shot? The last thing I'll say is, hey, tell your parents, let me give it 2 weeks. Let me give it 2 weeks. And if it doesn't work out, I'll find something else. And I think a lot of times that's enough for the parents to hear. And I've had a lot of reps do it. Give it 2 weeks, and sometimes it works out for them, and sometimes it doesn't. That's okay. I know this is going to be hard for all of you to understand, but not everyone wants to sell knives in people's homes. I know that's hard to believe, but it's true. It's crazy, I know, but it's totally true. So that's something you have to realize. Not everybody wants to sell knives in people's homes. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, so Sean Hamilton said, oh, by the way, going back to the online thing, the other things that you can mention is that a lot of students get a scholarship working here. A lot of students get college credits while working here. Personally, I got 14 from Lock Haven University. My advisor drove out and met my manager, and that's how I got so many. Most people get 3 or 6 that do get credits, but you can rattle off a few schools. You can talk about, hey, we were in the Wall Street Journal. We were on Modern Marvels. We've been on TV. I mean, it's a great, reputable company. So you just kind of rattle off some of the places we've been and some of the things we've done as a little backup plan as well, okay? Sean Hamilton said, Sean wanted to know, I don't know if Sean's on, but he said, what's the hardest thing that I've ever dealt with on a PDI call? And I responded with, you don't want to know about the hardest thing I've ever dealt with, but there are some difficult ones I'd be happy to share with you. If we have time at the end and somebody really wants to know the absolute most difficult phone call I've ever had to deal with, and you want to end on a total downer, I handled it like a professional, by the way. And I'll tell you why it was hard and what it was, but it's not what you think at all. You would have handled it the same way I did, and you'd have been just fine, just as I was. But I would like to talk about difficult parent callers. Sometimes, so when I was a branch manager, we didn't have these cool things like, I don't know, cell phones. And we had to call people's home phone. If we were calling them for PDI, we were calling their house. And a lot of times their parents would answer the phone. So by default, I had to get really good at talking to parents because I talk to parents all the time. I'd be waking their parents wouldn't be, I'd call it, 9 o'clock in the morning. And they would say, well, Tommy's sleeping right now, as parents often say. And I'd say, well, this is Tommy's manager. Could you wake him up for me, please? Imagine saying that to a parent. Would you have the guts to say it? We do that. We did that all the time. They were like, "Oh, yeah, okay." And here I'm like 21 years old myself, and so I wasn't, the parents didn't know how old I was, so I just said, "Hey, this is Tommy's manager." Put on my deep voice, this is Tommy's manager. So, could you wake him up for me? And then he would get on the phone. I'm like, "Hey, Tommy, was that your mom? Oh, she's cool." And then I'd rattle off some PDI. And I remember getting woken up, by the way, when I was a sales rep by my manager. So I guess that's why I felt so comfortable doing that. But a lot of times parents they either don't understand the pay, or now if you get a call from a parent, the parent's calling you. And the first thing I want to tell you is kill them with kindness. Kill them with kindness. My favorite line is, "Oh, you sound just like my parents." "Oh, you sound just like my parents. They were always worried about everything I was doing." And I think it's great that you're calling because we love to talk to the parents. I really love talking to parents about what's going on here with Vector. And, so sometimes the call is, "Hey, my son didn't get paid the amount they were supposed to be paid." And then I have to explain, well, they didn't hand in their presentation report. I'd be happy to pay them, but they have to hand that in. So if you could have them bring that by, we'll take care of that. And I'm really glad that you called. By the way, I think he's great. I think you did a great job raising him. That's my other favorite. I think you did a great job raising him. And I think he's a great kid. So if you can drop that off, we'll take care of it. Or, "Hey, I saw his paycheck and it was supposed to be this. We thought, they think it's base pay plus commission or whatever." And I have to kind of explain how it works. And I said, "Well, I'm really glad you called. I think he's a great kid, by the way. I think you did a great job raising him. I can see a lot of potential. Let me explain what I explained to him. I explained it in the interview, and I explain it again in training, and we even put it in writing for them in training, and we give them some examples when I re-explain it in advanced training. And then I sat down with him in his first personal consultation and explained what his first paycheck was going to be. But even though I explained it that many times, I know it's different than how other people get paid. And so it takes a little getting used to, and sometimes I have to just, explain it to the parents too. So this is how it works. And then I explain how the base pay works, either or, whichever's greater. And I reminded, we went over it in writing, we went over it in the interview and in training again. I say all the other students that started with them understand it, but I know that sometimes, things get missed when we're running the training. So I'm defending myself without being defensive. When I say things like all the other people he trained with understand it, but I know that sometimes people miss it. I'm saying that, hey, your kid's the only bonehead that missed this point. Okay. So what am I going to do? But I'm not saying it that way. Right. So those are things that I think that really help out. Sometimes when you're sitting down one-on-one, same thing with the kid himself. I say, hey, let me re-explain it to you. It's a little different than how other jobs work. I get that. I did go over it in the interview and training, and everyone else kind of seems to have a grasp of it, but no big deal. Let me explain it to you one more time, because I want to make sure that you know that you're being treated fairly, that you are making blank or more, right? So you're not making less than blank base pay, whatever your base pay is. You're either making that or more, but we average it out for the week. So, but any way you look at it, you're still either making that or more, okay? So, and you kind of have to re-explain it that way a couple of times. But here are some more difficult ones, okay? So one of my sales manager at the time, his name was Dan Villagra, had to fire one of our receptionists because her numbers were just terrible. And when you let somebody go, it's okay to let somebody go if you do it professionally, but Dan did it like a college student would let somebody go. He said things like, "I feel like a total dick for doing this right now." Well, this young lady was 17 years old, and when her parents found out that he said it that way, just because he dropped that one curse word, Dad flew off the handle and demanded that he talk to me. And then when he talked to me, what was funny was I was in the car and I was waiting for my wife and daughter who were in a store. My son was in the car with me, so I put it on speakerphone, and I said, "Jack, listen to me handle this parent that's really upset." Because I thought it'd be really good for my 12-year-old to hear and I did this quite a few times. He's heard me do PDI. As a matter of fact, when he was a little kid, he had a fake phone, And we watched him walk around the house going, "That's awesome, Michael. That's so great. You're awesome." And so he heard me do PDI many, many times. So he got a chance to hear this negative parent and who was demanding that I fire Dan. You need to fire this guy and blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, I'm not going to fire him, but I will definitely talk to him, and he'll be reprimanded for what he said. And but we're a company of second chances. And well, if you're a company of second chances, you should be giving my daughter a second chance. And I said, hey, we warned her 4 times. We gave her a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance. I think she could be great, at something else, but this just didn't work out for her. And I apologize that it wasn't handled a little bit more professionally. He would not let off the phone. And I let him kind of vent for about 15 minutes, but he wasn't listening to me. There was nothing I was going to say to change his mind. So eventually I just said, Mr. So-and-so, this conversation is now over. And I hung up the phone, because what am I going to do? Stay on the line for another 15 minutes? I got other stuff to do, right? He immediately called me back, and I didn't pick up, and he's barking into my voicemail. I thought you were about second chances. Pick up the phone, blah, 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 blah. So, but I didn't pick up the phone. And that was it. And it went away. And it always goes away. That's the thing that I see new managers get a little nervous about. Sometimes you just have to take the heat a little bit, be nice, be kind. If it gets to the point where they're just being, crazy, just very politely end it with, this conversation is now over. Thank you for your time. And just hang up and don't answer the phone again. And give yourself, a minute to pull it back together and let it go. It's gone away. You've handled it as best you could. I'm going to call the Better Business Bureau. I'm going to call the Attorney General. I got that once. I'm going to call the Attorney General. This is when I was in Connecticut. And I said, oh, yeah? Who's now a senator, by the way, Senator Blumenthal, but he was the Attorney General at the time. And I said, oh, yeah, tell Attorney General Blumenthal. I said, hi, both his sons worked here last summer. And the guy was like, all right. And they both became FSMs, by the way. So Senator Blumenthal's sons both became FSMs working with our company. So that's a nice little nugget, since he's a United States Senator now. I think he could be president one day, by the way. That would be cool, right? Hey, both the president's sons worked here when they were in college. Yeah. All right. Sometimes they call in and you got to talk to a parent, and their kids faked the demos. Like, they didn't even do the demos. And you called and you found out that they never even heard of this kid, or they knew the kid, but they never saw the demo. And the parent's upset because you didn't pay my son. And that's a lot of stuff that you see online. Like, they didn't pay me. You faked your demos, right? Anyway, so it's the conversation is just explain it to them. It's like, hey, I understand where you're coming from. If this happened to my kid, I would be the first one on the phone with that manager talking to them. But let me explain to you what happened. So when I called so-and-so, they said that they knew your son, but he never came over and showed them the product. When I called so-and-so and I asked, did he cut anything during the demo? They said, a tomato, which we don't do during you can do, but they didn't mention the rope, the leather, the penny, any of the amazing presentations. And I asked, anything else? You sure there was nothing else? When I called so-and-so, they said that it was a group demo, which we can't do group demos. So I only paid them for one demo on that one. Okay. But because they only did one, so I can't pay him on all those people. And you just explain what happened. And I'd say, I'd love to work with him if he wants to do the job right. But I paid him what I was allowed to pay him. So, and then the thing with base pay that you can do is it's going to be you and that sales rep versus Vector. No offense, Vector, but you and them versus Vector. So, for example, if you're ever in a PC and the rep faked a bunch of demos and you're like, hey, I was going to submit these for you, but I mean, when I called them and found out that you weren't even there, and this one said this and this one said that, like, I mean, I know you're saying one thing, but what am I supposed to, if I hand this into the company, or do you think they're going to believe you, or are they going to believe the customers in this case? And I didn't want to send this in and get you in trouble. So what do you think I should do with these? And usually they're like, yeah, thanks, I appreciate it. I'll tell you what, I'm going to pay you for these ones that did check out for sure. And if I do that, I know the company won't question it, because it's only $100 or it's under $150. So I know I can pay you that much and they won't question it. But I didn't want to send them all in and get you in trouble. I mean, they have lawyers waiting for people to screw this up. And I just didn't think it'd be worth putting you through that. And usually they say thank you. Okay. But I will pay them for any, you always pay them for the work they did. Just because they faked a couple doesn't mean you don't pay them for the rest. All right. If you didn't get a hold of somebody, pay them for that one too. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Okay. That's so when in doubt, just pay them out. That's what I say. Okay. I'll tell you another fun one. They don't teach you in branch school or leadership academy. And that is, we had a branch manager in Martha's Vineyard, population 11,000 year round. It balloons up to 100,000 people in the summertime because it's an island, but people vacation there and they have summer homes there. And Don Hill was one of our branch managers at the time. He later became a division manager. He recruited 30 people. They sold $150,000 for the summer, by the way, with just 30 launched. Anyway, so he got a pretty tough PDI call. He had a rep. A lot of people bike on Martha's Vineyard. They take their bikes everywhere. A lot of cars, but you have to take your car over in a ferry, 45-minute ferry ride to get to the island. And then, you can drive around the island, no problem. But a lot of people have bikes and they bike. Well, one of his reps left the office after a PC and hit somebody on a bike. Hit them on a bike, ran them over. And instead of calling 911 or her parents, she called her branch manager first. And she was very scared. And she's like, what do I do? I just hit somebody. They don't teach that in branch school. Now here's Donnie's a college student too, but you would say the same thing he said, call 911, call the police. I'll sit here on the phone with you, call 911, then call me back. I'll sit on the phone with you until they get there. And that's what he did. But that was just his gut reaction of what to do. And that's what you do. You help your reps no matter what they're going through because they're counting on you as a mentor. And sometimes you are the best mentor they've ever had. You, 18, 19, 20, however old you are, the best mentor they've ever had. They don't get that positive feedback all the time from their parents. They don't get family members who believe in everything that they do and their capabilities and their possibilities. And, what you are that person in their life. You are that rock. So you stay that rock and you help them out no matter what they're going through. All right. So those are some tough calls you could get. They're really not that tough, by the way. You'll handle it just fine. Don't be afraid of parents. They're just people. They're just like your customers, right? You wouldn't be afraid to sit down and talk to a customer. If you're with a customer and they're like, well, I think your handles are going to rot one day. And you'd be like, no, they're not, right? You totally would jump all over that customer. That's what you do with parents. When they say, well, I think the base pay, the way you did it is crooked. No, it's not. You just defend yourself. Same with landlords. Your landlord comes in and they give you a hard time. Give them a hard time right back. All right, they're just people. And that's what you do, right? All right. So anyway, Alex Shepard said people who want base pay on a lot of base pay questions. This is the last base. Actually, there are two more base pay ones. I think I might have handled this one. People who want base pay on unqualified appointments and people who lie about them on their sheet. So that's the whole me and you versus Vector. Hey, I didn't want to send these in. I didn't want to get you in trouble. Obviously I know I know you, but they don't know you. They just know you as, well, really a rep number, unfortunately. And they see the base pay sheet and they see what the customer said, and they're going to take the customer's word for it. I didn't want to send this in and get you in trouble. So here's what I can do. I can pay you for these. I want to do that for you. I know they won't question it. And moving forward, if you want to continue working here, you'd have to do it just on commissions. Like if they totally lied about the appointments, you can have them sell, and you can always sell, right? But if you wanted to go do something else, I would totally understand. How are you feeling right now? What are you thinking about all this? Yeah, it's really not for me, blah, blah, blah. Get their kit back and go your separate ways, okay? Somebody's 1 for 10, 0 for 10, or whatever. I don't feel bad not having them sell knives anymore. Like, that's okay, right? That's just not the job for them. So that's okay. If I hire a server and they keep pouring soup on my customers' laps, maybe being a server is not the job for them, So I think after 3 days of that, I think I would just have them do something else, somewhere else, by the way, right? So that's part of being a manager and a good leader for that matter, okay? Everett Burns, handling a rep who feels they've been paid incorrectly, all right? So now this is usually an after the fact type of situation. Like they get their check and they see they don't look at their commission statement. By the way, just like you never look at your commission statements, they never look at theirs either. Okay. So, and maybe there's a conference charge that they didn't even notice. So sometimes it's just a matter of pulling up the commission statement and going over it with them so they understand it. And then I'm going to teach you what I do next in a few minutes here. But if they sometimes maybe you forgot to put the base pay in on time. You have until Wednesday, right? And you waited till Thursday and it's too late and they don't get their base pay. They get a commission check for the peeler they sold, but they don't get the base. And you got to call them and say, hey, I screwed up. Try to do it before they call you. Hey, I screwed up. I didn't get the base pay done. You'll get that next week. Good news is you're going to get a really big check next week. Bad news is you just got to wait one extra week. And I really apologize and it won't happen again. Try not to screw with people's paychecks though. You wouldn't want us screwing with yours, so don't screw with theirs, okay? That's really important that you get the base pay done and submit it on time. If you do screw up, you own up to it before they call you, all right? Prevent it in advance. And then if they have some genuine concerns, make sure you bring them in and sit down and go over it with them and show them how it works. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they think it's base pay plus commission, and they're looking at, hey, I got commission on these, but these ones that I didn't sell on, I should have got the base pay. Right, but they sold enough where they averaged more than the base pay. So you sometimes have to re-explain it to them. Do it in super kind voice, but defend yourself with things like, "Hey, I know I went over this in the interview and in training, and we put it in writing for you. I also understand it's not like other companies you worked for. I know the pay is different, but so here's how it works. Now the other reps on the team. So then I wait a little while, and then I throw in. Now the other reps on the team got it. But I know it's different, so I don't mind re-explaining it to you. But do you understand how it works now? Can you see how you still made more than what we guaranteed you? And you got to kind of re-explain it that way a few times. And then I'll show you my favorite thing to do in just a minute here. We're getting to it. But I want to get to this one last question, and then I'm going to show you my favorite thing to do in a PC. Mike Leone says, all right, so here you got a rep that only gets 3 recommendations. This must have actually happened to Mike, because this would be, this almost never happens. But he says, if you saw it on Facebook, he says, well, how do you feel about that? And the rep says, I feel great. I wasn't expecting to get very many anyway, right? And then Mike says, you want me to give you a tip so that you can get more? And the rep says, nope, I'm good. So number one, that never happens. If it did actually happen to you, Mike, I would assume you did not run that person's training and that you were just trying to be nice and help them out. That would be my assumption, okay? Because if you are the manager that hired and trained this person, they wouldn't say that they don't want a tip from you, all right? However, an assistant manager might get that because sometimes they treat you like the substitute and not like the teacher, okay? But the way I would respond to that is, well, let's call the rep. Joe, I got to tell you, 3's not good. All right. And I am going to give you a tip, and I need you to follow the program if you want to stay on our base pay. Am I clear on that? Okay. Now I want you to, then I would give them the tip. I would talk about memorizing the approach, and I would be a tough boss on them. Okay. So that's, don't be afraid to be tough on your reps. You know what people are worried about? They're worried about their reps quitting. I would rather a rep quit because I was hard on them and have them say that the job is hard versus have them not make any money and quit or run out of leads and quit. Oh, I tried that job, but I ran out of people to see. I don't want anybody to ever say that, right? So I'm going to be tough on them on purpose because it's what's best for them. Just like you've had tough coaches and tough bosses and that were trying to pull out the best in you. And so you kind of use, this is how I would normally do it. First, if I'm reprimanding somebody, like they said they were going to do something and they didn't do it, and I'm calling them out on it, I'm like, hey, you said you were going to be at the team meeting and then you just blew it off. So I tell them what happened, and then I'm silent for a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds, which seems like an eternity. Hey, you said you were going to do blank and you didn't do it. And I'm just silent on purpose because it's uncomfortable, and I want them to feel really uncomfortable. And then eventually they say, well, I did blah, 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 and I'm really sorry. And hopefully they say that. Sometimes they don't say they're sorry. Then I'll explain my expectations, and then I'll always end really positive. Hey, I know you're better than this. Let's not worry about that. Let's get you in here for Makeup PC. I know you can do this. Let's start, and I just kind of put it in the past. But what happens is they heard my disappointed voice. And then I want to hear the disappointed voice again. Okay, so now you get to pick and choose when you use that. If a rep goes 0 for 3 and they're a great rep, I'm not going to be disappointed with them. I'm going to say, hey, it's luck of the draw. It's like kind of like a deck of cards. The deck's got red cards, black cards in it. They're 50-50. You got some aces in there, some kings, some queens. Sometimes you flip over that queen of spades, right? But every once in a while you flip over a red card. The red cards are like no sales. You just flipped over 3 red cards in a row. But you know what that means? It means now your deck is stacked with more black cards than red cards because you just got rid of 3 of them. So let's focus on the next one. You never know when it's going to be that ace, and you sell that signature or ultimate set. Okay, so tell me about your next demo, and I'll use that deck of cards analogy to kind of get them fired up about the next one. All right. You can ask questions in a minute here, but let me do something I just love to do in PCs. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully this works. I won't be able to see you, so you tell me if for some reason it's not working. Hold on one second here. What's wrong with it? Can you guys?
Yep, it's good.
Okay. All right. So when I'm sitting down with a sales rep, this is my favorite thing to do. Now, sometimes I'll do it in their first PC. Sometimes it's their transition PC. By transition PC, I mean I'm transitioning them out of their fast start and into the rest of their summer with Vector. And that needs to happen on their, well, it doesn't have to happen on their 10th day. It could actually happen a day or two before their fast start ends. It could happen a day or two after their fast start ends. But, you do the first PC and then at some point a transition PC to really talk about the rest of the summer. Because sometimes they think the hard work they put into their fast start is what it's going to be like all summer. And while the occasional push week will be like that, it's not going to be like that all summer, and they need to hear you say that. But this is something that I call reduce to the ridiculous. So I'm going to take their goal and I'm going to reduce it to the ridiculous. Now I would start off with a blank sheet of paper. So pretend this sheet of paper is blank for now. And I would sit down and I would say, Shelby, can you role play with me for a minute?
Yes.
Okay. So pretend you never sold Cutco before. Think about the job you had before selling Cutco for the summer. I would say, Shelby, how much did you make last summer on your previous job?
About $2,000.
About $2,000. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you can make more than $2,000 this summer, that would be pretty exciting, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Have you thought about how much you want to make this summer?
I'm going off to college, so I guess an extra $1,000 would be great. So like $3,000.
And by the way, sometimes I ask that question, they're like, I'm definitely going to make $10,000 this summer. And if that's the number, I will put that all the way over here. Okay, and I'll write 10,000 over here. And then they made 2,000, so I'll put, hey, well, let's focus on at least 3,000. We want to make more than last summer. Your goal is 7,000, and then we'll put 5,000 in the middle. Or sometimes they say, well, I'd like to make 4,000 or 5,000. I say, all right, I'll put 5,000 here. Let's at least make more than last summer. But I think you can make 7,000, right? So I'll put the numbers down based on how they respond. And sometimes, just like Shelby said, they don't really care about making that much money. They really were just looking for part-time. Hey, if I can make more than last summer, that'd be great. I'm going to say, all right, great. We'll put down 3,000 as a must-do, but I think you could make $5,000 or even $7,000 this summer. What would you do to $7,000, Shelby?
Oh wow, I'd probably get like a massage once a week.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, good. Well, we can definitely pull that off. Hey, let's talk about how much you would need to sell in order to do this. So if this is their first PC and they haven't sold anything, I know that they need to sell $13,333 to make $3,000. And I just kind of sit there and I do the math. You might want to create a cheat sheet for yourself that has all these numbers in it, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up to $20,000, so you can figure out the CPO quickly. If they've been at it for a couple of weeks, you could subtract how much they've sold so far and say this is what you need to go, right, and use that number. But I'm going to pretend that's the first PC and she hasn't sold that much. So this is what you need to sell to make 3,000. This is what you need to sell to make 5,000, and 25,715 to make 7,000. My cheat sheet is this PowerPoint here that has all the promotions on it that I can kind of pull up and real quick figure out what they need to sell. Okay, if you want that, just email me, johnwasserman@me.com, and I'll hit you back with that PowerPoint. All right, so let's figure this out. Shelby, how's your algebra?
Oh God, I'm really bad at math, but I can make an effort.
I'm going to do all the work for you. Let's just hear this. We need to figure out X, okay? So X is how many demos you need to do in order to hit your income goals, all right? So X is your goal.
Okay.
Divided by, your average order times your closing ratio. You got that?
Yes.
All right. So if your goal is 13,330, actually, let's just do the middle number for time's sake, 20,000. All right. If your goal is 20,000, then that divided by your average order, we'll call your average order 300. We'll use the office average since you don't really have an average yet. You just started. Times your closing ratio. Now we know that after advanced training, most people do much better than 6 out of 10, but I'm going to use 60%. Okay, 60%. We're going to say of the people you sit down with buy. That way, when we figure out how many demos you need to do, it's going to include no sales. It's going to include things like that. Okay, small orders, big orders. That's all going to be averaged in. So if I do this math real quickly, and I do, we'll do 300 times 0.6, which is 180. So if I just take your goal of 20,000 in sales and divide it by 180, that means you need to do 111.1. We might as well see the entire customer, not just 1/10 of them. We'll call 112 demos in order to hit your income goal of $5,000. Shelby, we'll pay you $5,000 to visit 112 people this summer. How do you feel about that?
That's a lot of money, but I don't know if I have that many people to see.
Now, most people, this is just a conversation to those of you listening, are overwhelmed when they see 112 demos. They're like 100, so a little taken aback. Well, let's find out if that's going to be an easy task or not. So it is mid-May, and you go back to school when, Shelby?
End of August.
End of August, so it's mid-May. We'll say it's the end of May, so we got the end of June, end of July, end of August. So we've got about 12 weeks before school starts, right? So if we take 112 demos and we divide it by 12 weeks, what's that? 112 divided by 12 is 9.3. So 10 demos per week.
Okay.
What do you think about that? Sound a little bit more reasonable?
Yeah, that's definitely doable.
You only need to see 10 people this week, and then you should get on average about 5 leads from each person. It's about 50 leads. Even if you only had 30, you'd still have enough for the next week, and that would just continue to move on and grow from there, okay? But 10 demos a week is, how many is that? That's, what, 2 per day?
Yeah, wow.
That's only 2 per day, which is about what you've been doing, right?
Yeah.
Now, you're allowed to do more. As a matter of fact, I think you could see that if you did 3 or 4 per day, you'd make $7,000. But if you can just see 2 people per day, 5 days a week, we will pay you $5,000 this summer. By the way, that just means phoning, making 10 to 15 calls in the morning. Actually, write this on the sheet for him. And make another, 15 to 20 calls in the evening. Could you see how you would easily, you might not even need that many calls, right? You might call 2 people, they both pick up, you get both of them, you're done. But if you just schedule 2 appointments every day, make a little phone time in the morning, a little phone time in the evening. And by the way, you're probably calling some of the people that you called in the morning, you're calling the same people in the evening. So that's not even 25 different people that you're calling necessarily, right? But if you can just phone twice a day, a little bit in the morning, a little bit in the evening, and get your 2 demos lined up, we will pay you $5,000. So the best way to look at this job is, if you want to make $5,000 this summer, your job is to make a couple of calls in the morning and a couple of calls in the evening. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, that's really doable. Wow.
Yeah. Now with a rep that I think has a potential to make 10, or Shelby sold $60,000 her first summer. I don't know that we sat down with her and talked to her about making 20,000 right away. We probably talked to her about making, but we probably did something similar to this, and she was like, wow, if I see 3 people a day, I can make $10,000. Her average order might have been 300 at first, but grew as the summer progressed. Her closing ratio was certainly higher than 60%. But I don't want to make it too easy for them. Like, I don't want to use 80% closing ratio and they find out they need to do 6 demos a week, right? By the way, if you could only do 4 or 5 demos a week, we'd still pay you $3,000 with your averages. And they're like, wow, okay. Like, sometimes, and it's okay to say that. We're always worried about saying to a rep, do 5 demos a week and we'll pay you $3,000 this summer. But that's the truth, right? And by the way, that's about, the average rep does about 5 or 6 or 7 demos in a week. So, but we don't want them to think, oh, I have to do 10 in order to make money, or I can't work here anymore, right? We don't want to overwhelm them. So it's like, hey, if you could do 5 or 6 demos a week, we'll pay you $3,000. If you can get to 10, we'll pay you $5,000. And if you can get to 14, 15 demos, just see 3 people a day, we'll pay $7,000 this summer. That's how it works out. You could do the math on all of them, but after you do it a few times, you start to realize what the numbers are. They come out pretty consistent each time. How does that look to you guys? Have you ever done that before? Oops, going back to stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, I think that's so awesome, John. I love what you just broke down for everybody. Just makes it so much so. It's like it gives them a roadmap, an actual tangible roadmap.
And I put it on a sheet of paper and I say, take it home, put it on your refrigerator, and tell your mom it's just math. So we did a little algebra today, okay? And anything with a letter, I think I call algebra. I don't even know if it is algebra. I'm terrible at math. I did marry a math teacher, and she is the one who helped me figure that out, by the way. All right. But that number that we came up with, 180, is now a constant. 180, what was it, $180 when I took 300, multiplied it by 0.6. So you could take any of these CPO goals and divide it by 180, and it would tell you how many demos for the summer, divided by how many weeks they have left, and it tells you how many per week. And you can figure out at 5 days how many per day that would be. Right? So, all right. I gave you an earful. Do you have any questions or any other scenarios you'd like me to work on?
All right, guys. So just like normal, write in the group chat if you've got a question, and then we'll go to you. So we got 15 minutes left of John's time, so definitely take advantage. Anyone? Okay. Mike, did you have a question? I know that you were going through some stuff with your training class. Any questions for Mike?
No, I mean, I feel like mainly John answered the main question I had. John, just so you know, I did run that girl's training. So possibly I did something wrong, or I'm just not being a tough enough coach. The funny thing is that she's actually sold $2,500. So like, she doesn't see that like she won't continue to have the success if like she doesn't do what I'm telling her, but she's doing like half of what I'm telling her, which is the demo, but not like.
She's probably not comfortable asking for leads. That'd be my guess. Did you get a lot of PR names from her?
No, but she only had 35 people in her phone.
So she's not only not comfortable asking for leads, she's uncomfortable giving them as well. And even though she said she only had 35 people in her phone, and you may have seen them, if they wanted, there's Facebook, there's so many ways they could give more leads. But that'd be my guess, is that she's just not comfortable with it. So I would sit down and I would want to do a PC with her, or get her field trained where she can really see a live customer giving somebody leads, somebody asking for leads, getting leads. And one of the questions I might ask her is, let me ask you this question. In my experience, typically when somebody's not good at getting leads, they're not comfortable asking. And kind of do a feel, felt, found. Hey, if that's how you feel, I think a lot of people feel that way. I felt that way when I first started. What I found out was people were more than happy to help if I just asked. And let me teach you how I ask for leads and see if this helps you. I kind of make it a game. You can kind of make a game up for them if that's how you get leads, or whatever, however you know how to get leads. Just teach her how to do it. But I think getting her field trained would really help, and helping her. The one question I would ask her is, hey, at the end of this summer, would you like to continue to feel uncomfortable asking for leads, or would you like to be like a leads rock star, totally comfortable, you could ask anybody for anything, type of, which do you think is going to be better for your future? And hopefully she'll answer smartly, and not smart-assly, and you'll be able to help her out. So.
All right, Colin, we've got a question from Colin Busak. Go ahead, Colin.
Hey, Shelby, you got it right. I'm proud of you.
Busak, got it.
So my question is, you mentioned taking people off of base pay if they're not doing the right things. How do we go about talking to them and saying we're going to take them off?
I'm going to take you off base pay right now. Are you ready?
All right.
Okay, Colin, I got your presentation report here, and they all checked out, but you went 2 for 12. How do you feel about that?
All right. I made decent money.
Yeah. Yeah, you did. However, I got to tell you, Colin, I don't know if you are interested in breaking records, but that's like an office record. I've never seen somebody go 2 for 12. I mean, that almost never happens. So here's the thing. When I submit this to the company, of course, they're going to pay you. but they're going to view this as Colin is either an asset or a liability. So far you've sold a paring knife and a petite carver. So you've actually made more in base pay than the Cutco products are worth, right? So do you think they're going to view you as an asset or a liability?
Probably a liability.
Yeah, definitely. What do companies want to do with their liabilities?
Cut them loose.
They do. They want to cut them loose. And I got to tell you, Colin, I don't view you as a liability. So I definitely do not want to cut you loose. But I think we need to show Vector that you're an asset, the asset that I know you are. But they don't know you. They're just going to see these numbers, right? See how I'm doing like me and you versus Vector. They don't know you like I know you. So what I want to do is I actually just want to suspend your base pay for the next 5 appointments. And I just want you to work off commissions. And I want you to go out and really try to sell. And I'm going to teach you some things to help you out today so that you can go do that. And you sell 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5 and you show them that you're really trying to do the job, I'll put you right back on the base pay. But we need to show them that you're serious about being here. Now, if I teach you something that can really help you out in selling, do you think this is something you want to give a shot?
For sure.
They always say for sure. They may leave and quit when I'm done. And I would say about half the time they quit and half the time they sell. And I'm okay either way because they are a liability at the moment, right? I'm okay either way. But they really want to sell. They're going to take whatever I teach them and they're going to use it. And what I typically teach that person is I teach them what I call the essentials close. You may have heard of this. You may not have heard of this. But basically, if they actually are doing the demos and they're not selling and they're selling small pieces, my guess is they're not seeing people that really can afford the larger sets. And those people are getting really turned off when they're showing them the larger sets. It could be because the rep just doesn't know people that make a lot of money, which was the kind of rep I was, by the way, when I was a new rep. I went 1 for 7 my first weekend and cut my finger. And I was really trying, but I saw my broke relatives. So that's just what happened. But the essentials close is simply, I say, let's sometimes we sit down with people and we show these larger sets and they really kind of get turned off by it. If that's happening, I want you to do the essentials close, where I want you to skip the larger sets, skip the galley set, and do your normal close. But instead of closing on the homemakers and the ultimates and all that, I just want you to start with the essentials plus 5 and the essential set, those 2. And then I want you to drop down slowly from there. And I've had people that were, 0 for 10, go out and do the essentials close and have a grand day on essential sets. And I role play it with them, or I have them role play it with me. I teach them how to do it, but they have them role play it with me. And they go essentials, studio, and they just drop down the smaller sets. So they're not showing them all at once. They're dropping them down each set one at a time. But they're starting with smaller sets, and it builds their confidence. And then eventually they go back to trying to sell homemakers. But if they want to be a studio stud all summer long, that's okay by me. And they, smaller sets are great. So so I didn't just take them off base pay. I suspended them from base pay, right? Next 5 demos, we're going to work on commissions. We're going to show the company that you really want to be here. That works out. We're going to put you right back on. What do you think about that? Sometimes they say, well, the job's really not for me. And I'm like, oh, that's okay. That's fine. I totally get it. I just want you to know, I think you're going to be great at whatever you do. And I build them up and I leave them with a positive exit. But most of the time they're like, okay, let's give that a shot. And sometimes they think about it and they don't want to give it a shot, but a lot of times that they do, and they go out and sell. Half the time they go out and sell. So that works.
I love it. So we've got 7 minutes left, or 8. Okay, quick question from Connor Ness, and then I know that Sean wants to hear your story.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I know you said to deal with parents like over the phone when they call in. How involved do you think it is? How nice is it to have them come into the office, maybe for like a conference, like how they have parent-teacher conferences at school? Do you advise that over the summer?
Yeah. Ask your for the rest of you, ask your DVM about this. But in our division, we're going to have a parents' night in each local office. We do this each summer. Now, you may not have had one in your office last summer. That's because your manager didn't pull it off. If you're but we do it each summer, and I got to tell you, this thing is the best. First off, it's only the positive parents who show up. Very rarely do you get a negative parent show up to parents' night. If they do, they're kind of, arms folded, but they loosen up as time goes on and they realize that you're not a criminal. That you have their kids' best interest in mind, and you're just trying to simply tell their kids that they can be the best doctors, the best nurses, the best lawyers, the best, whatever they want to be that they can be. And that Cutco is part of the path there. I have the whole opening comments already written. You have a rep talk about why they love working with Vector. If you can get a parent in, your own or the parent of one of the reps, just talking positively about why they like their kid working at Vector, it's going to be a home run. That parent will steal the show no matter what they say, hands down. And the parents, even if it's only a couple of parents who show up, have the rep come with their parents, it's going to be huge for development. And those are the kids that are going to last all summer. So I typically like to do this right after launching a bunch of high school kids. What's also cool is when you have a parents' night or parents' day, I think we're going to do it on a Saturday afternoon. But when you have a parents' meeting, you can, in your interviews, as part of your take-home material, you can say, by the way, let your parents know we have a parents' meeting on such and such day. Even if those parents never show up, you'll get better shows to training when they go home and say, well, Mom, they have a parents meeting that you can go to, right? And then in training, you're able to say, hey, next Saturday, or maybe it's a Friday evening. You can even make it part of your team meeting. Again, talk to your DVM about timing. Or to be able to say in training, hey, we have a parents meeting. Here's the date and time. Let your parents know. You can make a parent invite, if you will. If you want to make it more formal, that could be fun. A one-page take-home document. And it just, that alone will really increase shows, launches, and people's commitment to working with Vector. Hey, parents want to be involved. You know, my wife and I, my kids are 13 and 16, and we're going to parent stuff all the time. And we want to be involved. And I know that other people are going to be influencing my son and have more influence over my daughter than I do. I know that's a fact. Even though I'm the parent, I know that other people are going to have that influence. I take that influence very seriously, and I think these parents' meetings really help showcase that we care about them more than we care about their CPO. Plus, you can explain how hard they're about to work during the push period, and that's really good too.
Parents' meetings are fun. I remember bringing my parents to your meeting, John.
Yeah.
All right, 4 more minutes. Can you tell the story in 4 minutes?
Worst PDI call I've ever taken.
Yeah.
All right, you asked for it. You're not going to be smiling in a second here, but we had an assistant manager go missing. And as you can imagine, that's difficult when they just went missing. Now you think, okay, well, and they're not the type of kid that would just blow us off or be goofing off. I mean, they drove home at night and they went missing. Well, they were out late with the team, and they drove home and they fell asleep at the wheel and they ran into a tree and they died. So that PDI call, when they found him a day later, was bar none the hardest PDI call I've ever had to take. And there's no worse feeling than having to bury one of your sales reps. And you want to talk about a parent meeting that was uncomfortable? That was the most uncomfortable one. Fortunately, the parents were great and very forgiving. So it wasn't even in my office. I was a DVM. It was in one of my district managers' offices, but I went with them and obviously was the rock in that situation. But that's not a PDI call you'll take, most likely. I'm sure you'll handle it with just as much and just as much in stride as I did. But that's the absolute toughest PDI call I've ever had to handle.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely really tough.
Well, told you we were going to end on a Debbie Downer. So.
Well, we're going to bring it back up again. Thank you so much for today's call. I have 2 full pages of notes here, and I hope that all of you guys have the same notes. And I really just appreciate your time, John.
Let me speak one more thing real quick before you finish.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things about what you're going to be doing this summer as a leader, as a mentor, is that you're going to impact a lot of people. And you're going to be there for people, because you might not have that situation, but when Don Hill was a rep, his father died of cancer, and I became that role model for him. And he became my assistant manager, branch manager, district manager, and eventually a division manager with our company, and now still one of my best friends today. When I think about, here's another tip: don't do any fruit ninja or any of that stupid stuff in your office where you're throwing fruit. Don't drop a watermelon over a butcher knife, or don't do anything like that. Okay. I made the mistake of not heeding to that advice, and one of my reps got cut badly, and going to meet those parents after taking their son to the hospital for stitches. But those parents were so great. I was so fortunate. that this young man, Pedro Serra, ended up becoming my assistant manager, my branch manager, my pilot manager, and eventually a district manager. And we became such good friends that I've been to his parents' house hundreds of times. They invited my grandfather up after meeting him at a year-end banquet. My grandfather went to visit Pedro's parents and didn't even tell us he was in town. So imagine that, all right? That's how great his parents were. You're going to meet a lot of great people. And most of the stories you're going to have to tell are going to be life-changing for you and for the people that you're working with. And they're going to be positive, and they're going to be exciting. You're going to grow, and they're going to grow. And they are going to look back at the summer and say that it was your leadership that they still think about in their other jobs that keeps them going and keeps them positive and keeps them, doing great at the work they're doing. I think that's pretty cool.
That's a great way to end the call. Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Awesome.
Got it.
All right, everybody, have a great day. And, definitely rewatch this call. There were a lot of nuggets that if you didn't write them down, you should definitely write them down. So thanks again, John. It was awesome.
Pleasure.